Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Monday morning, April 13th, a wild weather day here in the Mid-Atlantic region. We have some heavy rain, potential damaging wind gusts today of 60 plus miles per hour. Of course, that means that power outages are on the table. The afternoon could bring about some severe thunderstorm activity, and then all of this is followed by a much colder air mass that arrives in the overnight hours. Quite chilly on Tuesday as compared with today, and then another low pressure area will form along the frontal boundary zone that actually passes through this afternoon. Could throw some rain, perhaps mixed with wet snow late Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, but a lot to talk about for the next 12 to 24 hours or so. First of all, we have a warm frontal system right now that is really advancing to the north here. There's a surge of very warm and humid air that'll ride up the eastern seaboard over the next few hours from the south to the north, all associated with a very powerful low-level jet. And we'll talk about that in the next couple of minutes. That powerful low-level jet, a couple thousand feet up above the ground level, is the reason there's a potential for 60-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts later today. All it will take is a little bit of mixing in the atmosphere to bring those very strong winds just above the ground level down to the surface. Meanwhile, strong cold front moving eastward, trailing this very strong storm system that is now centered over the Great Lakes. That cold frontal system arrives this afternoon, and the potential exists for some severe thunderstorms to form. Certainly strong thunderstorms are likely to form along that frontal boundary zone as it moves into the I-95 corridor region. And any kind of convection could also help to bring down to the surface those very strong winds in the lower part of the atmosphere. So a major storm system still affecting a large part of the eastern U.S. Well, we'll take a look at the radar in a moment here, but first I wanted to point out something to really closely monitor over the next few hours in terms of the potential for severe weather this afternoon with that cold frontal system. There's been steady rain along the I-95 corridor over the last several hours, heavy rain. There can very well be a break in the action, however. Continuation of rain for the next couple of hours, but then there could be a break in the action during the midday hours, and not even out of the question that we get a little brightening skies here. And certainly, if we manage to get a break in the action with some sunshine, that will fuel the atmosphere ahead of the cold front. And this is a water vapor loop here. We're looking at a higher level water vapor loop over the last couple of hours. And notice this area right here. This is actually drier air pressing into West Virginia at the current hour ahead of the cold front. This pattern right out here is associated with that cold frontal system, but there is some drying just ahead of that cold front. That's why, again, I believe could very well be a break in the action. And if that break in the action manages to allow for some sunshine, some heating in the lower levels of the atmosphere, that will enhance the chances for severe weather later on this afternoon when that cold front arrives. And the stronger those thunderstorms, the greater the chance for damaging wind gusts. Of course, with all this threat of damaging wind gusts of 60 plus miles per hour, power outages are certainly on the table in the Mid-Atlantic region. So again, that's one thing we'll watch to see if there's any brightening skies. I do expect temperatures to really climb over the next few hours as this surge of air rides from the south to the north on strong southerly winds. And let me finally point out here that we could get 60 mile per hour wind gusts even without the development of severe thunderstorms this afternoon. That is how unstable this atmosphere is and how strong those winds are in the lower levels of the atmosphere. Again, with or without severe thunderstorms, we could get damaging wind gusts in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Here's the latest radar loop from WSI's and telecast.com. Again, a couple different bands here of showers and thunderstorms to monitor here. First of all, along the eastern seaboard right now, this is again the area that has produced pretty steady rainfall in the I-95 corridor over the last several hours, including certainly some torrential downpours. But notice again, we saw that water vapor imagery loop a second ago here. Drier air in between the systems here. This is kind of associated with the warm surge of air moving from the south to the north. This band out here is associated with that cold frontal system. Some drying in between, and that will kind of help us to determine whether or not we have an enhanced chance of severe thunderstorms this afternoon with that cold frontal system. Again, watch out for a break in the action in terms of precipitation, maybe even some brightening skies, and that will allow for some low-level heating, which destabilizes the atmosphere. Well, let's take a look at a high-resolution model. This is the 3-kilometer version of the NAM model here. It's the higher resolution, higher than the 12-kilometer version of the NAM, higher than the GFS model. And the main thing I want to point out with this particular plot here, there's very strong low-level winds. This is the 850 millibar level, which is a couple thousand feet. That's all, a couple thousand feet above the ground level. And these wind barbs right here, we pointed this out a few days ago, represents the speed of the wind at 850 millibars. Very, very strong, low-level jet right in this region, right, surging up the eastern seaboard. That does a few things. First of all, it pushes warmer air and more humid air from the south to the north. Again, expecting the 70s in much of the I-95 corridor region during the midday and afternoon hours. And those very strong low-level winds, maybe up to 80 miles per hour or so, just a couple thousand feet above the ground level. Any kind of mixing, any kind of instability in the atmosphere, certainly any kind of severe thunderstorm development could bring those very strong winds down to the surface levels. That's why I'm fearful of 60-plus mile per hour wind gusts during the midday and afternoon hours in the I-95 corridor region. Perhaps a little better chance for those very strong winds from the I-95 area, the immediate Route I-95 area to the coast. Places like New Jersey, maybe Delmarva Peninsula, maybe even have the best chance for these damaging wind gusts and the likely resultant of some power outages. So again, these are very, very strong winds. Here is the center of that low pressure area over the Great Lakes region right now, again producing some significant snowfall on its northwest flank in the cold sector, places like the upper peninsula of Michigan. But this is the very reason, the main ingredient as to why there could be some damaging wind gusts in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City over the next several hours, really right through the afternoon. Again, especially if there's any kind of brightening between the passage of the warm front and the arrival of that cold front this afternoon. Well, let's finally walk through the high kilometer version, the higher resolution version of the NAM model here. And again, there's going to be likely a break in the action from the steady heavy rain we've had in D.C., Philadelphia, New York City over the last several hours. Liable to be a break in the action during the latter part of the morning, the midday, maybe even into the early afternoon. Here is that steadier rain that may very well slow down or even stop for a while, allowing potentially for some brightening skies. And this is the area, the band associated with that advancing cold front. Let's move forward here. Heavy rain pushing to the north and east, and here's that a band of showers and embedded thunderstorms associated with the cold frontal system. Could be a little break in the action here, and then multiple bands slide on through. And here's that band over New Jersey, maybe during the early to middle part of the afternoon. So again, cold frontal system at this time lies right in this region right here. That ultimately, there really will be kind of two cold frontal systems. One arrives this afternoon, and a secondary arrives during the evening hours. And behind that second one is really when the colder air starts to push in. But again, we have multiple bands of showers and thunderstorms over the next several hours, any one of which could bring damaging wind gusts to the I-95 corridor region. Let's now just kind of push forward here and talk a little bit at the end here of the next event that we'll watch for. Again, colder air pushes in the overnight hours, much cooler on Tuesday as compared to today. And that frontal system, that cold frontal system, ends up kind of stalling out along the mid-Atlantic coastline, and that will allow for the development a little bit right here showing up here by tomorrow evening of another low pressure area. Again, in that stalled out frontal boundary zone, and it moves into the DC, New York City, Philadelphia corridor here during the late night tomorrow night into the early morning hours on Wednesday. Not a strong storm, certainly nothing like what we're experiencing today. Just want to point out it could be cold enough for some wet snowflakes to mix in at times. Again, we're talking late Tuesday night into the morning hours on Wednesday. But again, the big story is the wild weather expected today in the Mid-Atlantic region. Heavy rainfall, watch out for localized flooding. Potential for damaging wind gusts of 60 plus miles per hour. Possibility of some strong to severe thunderstorms this afternoon. Again, we could get those damaging wind gusts whether or not severe weather actually develops this afternoon. So potential does exist, unfortunately, for some power outages as well. Certainly if we get 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts, which is on the table for the midday and afternoon hours. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.